actually people use, the customers want to adopt, and that's all we did. So we are now transforming and trying to provide more transparency and efficiencies through supply chain for B2B and also for consumers. So yeah, happy to go through the details after.
Great. So first of all, great event put together by VT here. Yesterday was a great lineup. Enjoyed all the conversation and panels. Thank you for putting it together, and thank you for having me back here. I'm Ritesh Johar. I'm co-founder and CTO of Moonlighting. We started Moonlighting back in 2014. It's like 5 years ago. We started as a core business without blockchain, but we jumped into blockchain around in 2017. To give you a perspective of how existing business kind of transforms them into emerging technologies, we saw we are a two-way marketplace where a lot of service providers come and join and create their profiles, create their service cards, show up their skills, and get hired. And now, suddenly, there becomes a need where you want to make these profiles trusted and decentralized without curating them with the traditional sources. That's where blockchain came in for us in 2017. We started with investigating multiple protocols and all that, but eventually did it on ESIO. Very excited. Learning curve so far, and we are looking forward to taking it further with many of our strategic and partners in traditional spaces also jumping onto blockchain with us. So I'll be happy to talk about it more, and looking forward to this panel as well.
Ben?
My name is DiScipio. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Fundopolis, and I know that we're going to talk about our companies a little bit later, so I won't get into too much on that. I started out in the financial services industry in the 80s, moved into business process reengineering in the 90s, and I've really been a technologist ever since. Was helping a friend of mine who had an asset management company in Boston, doing real estate development, and he wanted to find a way to bring asset management, to bring investing to the people, to ordinary people, because he had noticed in his business that the smaller the investor, the more excited they were about what they were doing. And to him, he had much more joy interfacing with those people than he did with people that really, okay, I lost a little, okay, I gained a little, it was a transaction. It didn't really excite him. So in the process, we took a look at technologies, and that's how we uncovered blockchain. And I think, it represents, I think, the best reason why you should uncover blockchain, which is that the use case really fits it well. We started in 2016, around the time that the Jobs Act was coming into play for regulation crowdfunding, and that's what got us started. Since then, I've immersed myself in the regulatory, which is crazy, and the technical side of blockchain. So.
Nicolas.
Hi, so my name is Nicolas Arqueros, and I'm the CTO of Emurgo. So Emurgo is the venture arm of the Cardano blockchain, but we are going to discuss more about Emurgo later. So about myself, I study economics and also software. And when I was finishing school, one of my closest friends was working in a crypto exchange, and he was trying to explain to me why Bitcoin was pretty cool. And this exchange was called Tradehill, and it was back in 2011 when Bitcoin was like $30. And obviously, I didn't believe him, and I didn't see the potential of Bitcoin. And only like 4 years later, when more friends were like entering the space, when I started to see the value. And meanwhile, I was working with a few companies in the Bay, and my friend contacted me again, and he was telling me about Cardano, Emurgo, and the new cool stuff that he was doing. And actually, this time I believe him, and that's why I ended up joining Emurgo.
So I'm going to go through and ask each of you a little bit more about your companies, maybe spend about 10 minutes with each of you. So I mostly invest in cybersecurity companies. And so I have my finger on the pulse of a lot of things, but mostly I do it through people like Gartner, who will brief me. I'll talk to analysts monthly and get overviews. And blockchain is something that comes up probably every quarter. I get a briefing on it. And the statistics are still that less than 1% of CISOs want to talk about blockchain or talk to companies working in blockchain. But it seems like more and more startups are still throwing out AI, but also throwing out blockchain as your solution. So let's talk about that, right? Something that probably should be more revolutionary than evolutionary when you talk about it. Let's start with moonlighting. So you had mentioned that moonlighting was a thing before you implemented blockchain. So talk a little bit more about exactly what moonlighting does and why you implemented it, and do you really need to have blockchain?
Yep. So Moonlighting is a platform which provides freelancers and independent workers tools to take their business online and make it on demand. So we are in an on-demand economy, a gig economy, growing up to 50 million, as they say, in the US already. So now a lot of these people want to be in this platform, want to be in this space, but they don't have the tools to do it. So Moonlighting has created this platform where we can provide those tools to them. Now, another thing which Moonlighting did is we consciously stayed away from making our operational costs too heavy to be able to support a big audience. So we kept our marketplace open, which means if you go to Moonlighting right now, you will see anywhere from pet sitters, dog walkers, to data scientists, to attorneys. Everybody is on Moonlighting. Now, as more and more people join Moonlighting, we need to make sure, the profiles are authentic, they are trustable, they are verifiable in certain aspect. Now, one way is to go the traditional route where we can start curating every content which is coming on our platform. And again, we have seen examples of many companies putting so much operational cost up front that, getting into profitable business is really hard. So at that time, we started looking at alternative solutions. And one thing which came into discussions was how we can first of all verify the data and then make it decentralized and out of control of Moonlighting and have multiple parties contribute to the same data and enrich these profiles. So now to do that, you need to create a system which is, again, to create a trustful data, you need a trustless system. So blockchain, was an emerging technology
to stop
at that
you,
time.
based up right there, it sort of, if I'm not wrong about the technology, it sort of feels like it's TaskRabbit or any given sort of like supply demand. I need someone to go pick up my coffee. I need somebody to do my kids' homework, and you sort of outsource that. Yeah. Do you need the blockchain for that?
It is part of that is that, but at the same time, it's not only running errands and very local kind of business.
Right.
There's a lot of virtual component to it. Like we have people, I think most of our content, I don't have the percentages, but if I have to guess, I think 60% or maybe close to 60%, we have virtual content on our platform where people don't meet each other.
Right.
And now that's a little different from TaskRabbit. I always like to say that we are not only TaskRabbit, we are Upwork, we are Fiverr, we are everything.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, another thing we do is we create this tool set which we give to these freelancers to say, you should run this business in a box with Moonlighting. You can, if you want. You don't need to create a separate website. You have a business page on Moonlighting. You don't need to go and start using other tools to create your proposals, your invoices, getting your payments, instant chat. Everything is within Moonlighting platform itself. Now, more and more people, with this ease of use, you connect a lot of people. Once you start connecting a lot of people, you need to start creating trust in your platform. Like when I'm talking to you, I should be able, when I see you on Moonlighting, I should be able to say that, you know what, Jen is good. Like I can work with her. And how do I say that without myself curating you or doing my due diligence, which not everybody wants to do, or I have to trust the platform to do it. So now how can platform do it is either curating each candidate and the data which is coming with each candidate, which creates a lot of operational cost. Now, or you create a system or ecosystem where all this data can be fed from various aspects for that profile and then put it on a trustless system which can be reused not only by you, but all your strategic and other partners.
Have you found
that is where
that
blockchain comes in?
Have you found that being able to point to blockchain has helped you in comparison to your competitors? Do you feel like people trust you a little bit more
Yes.
than they've trusted other platforms?
I think it has helped us already, I would say, and we think that it will help us way more in future as this technology evolves, as we mature in this technology as well. We started as a B2C platform. Now, with including blockchain a year ago, and we launched our first blockchain solution in August, and we are already seeing a lot of traction, a lot of interest from traditional companies coming to us and giving us a B2B aspect to the whole business now. So now there is these companies who are sitting on like a load of data which they want to put in a system which can be reused, which can be said that, okay, this does not only belong to Ritesh or Moonlighting, he does not have the control on being able to, change that data or for their own benefit. So they want to join the forces and create a more robust profile through Moonlighting and start getting the value of blockchain through us. So it has brought a lot of B2B aspect to our business now since we got into blockchain.
Ben, how about you? Tell us more about your company.
So we began in late 2016, as I said earlier. The idea was to bring investing to the people, and the Jobs Act really represents a lot of promise there. But we found that the industry in general was focusing on tech companies and startups solely, which essentially created a portfolio where 95% of them are going to be failures. And we felt that that was partly responsible for the lack of growth in the market. But there was another piece that was really important, and this is where blockchain came in. We knew that ultimately liquidity was going to be absolutely necessary, because in order to ask Joe Public to invest in a local business or to invest in a potential startup business, they would need to have some ability to get liquidity. And so we knew that, it doesn't have to be, highly liquid. It could be mildly liquid. It could take 6 weeks to get that liquidity, but as long as you have the ability and the facility to do that.
Step back for me a little bit. So you've got a platform, and you've got startups on the platform that I might be able to invest in, but they're not tech.
And established businesses.
And established businesses. Correct. And so I'm writing a check to your company, and you're putting it into that other company on my behalf?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, it goes into escrow first. Yeah.
Sure. So why do I need the blockchain? Couldn't you just simply keep a ledger of how much money I put into a company, and when they exit, figure out what the waterfall chart is of how much money I should get back?
Absolutely. That's certainly possible. So the crowdfunding side of the business, to be honest with you, doesn't need blockchain at all, because really the only responsibility of a portal is to assist a company through the raise and then get to the point where they close. And the way the rest of the portals work, it ends up being your responsibility to kind of carry it from there on. What we wanted to do is we wanted to change that paradigm. We wanted to create an end-to-end solution. So we actually have two companies that are sub-companies of Fundopolis LLC that one is the portal and handles the relationship up until the point that the raise is closed. And then once the raise is closed, it moves on to Fundopolis Managed Services, which actually offers a whole suite of services that are facilitated through the blockchain that carry through the life of the security. And this is important for a number of perspectives. Certainly from a company perspective, it removes a lot of pain points, which is really important. For other companies coming into other competitors in the crowdfunding portal market, there's the issue that they have to deal with their investors, they have to deal with the issuances, they have to deal with maybe any perks that they've issued. On our platform, Fundopolis Managed Services actually issues the securities as tokens, where the behavior of the security and the behavior of the payment structure for it, if it's a debt or a revenue share instrument, is all baked into the smart contract. But in addition to that, we also offer a perk management system. So we actually issue all of their perks as utility tokens, and we use a private permission blockchain, which makes largely makes the SEC happy. Hester isn't here, is she? I was scanning for her earlier. But then we have a mobile app that allows people to redeem those perks, and so perk management actually becomes a rather large headache for issuers following a launch. I mean, they're really interested in the capital that's coming in, and so they get to the end, they get their check, and everyone's really excited until they realize that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. They've got to communicate with all their issuers. They've got to make sure that if they have any rights baked into those contracts, that they have a facility in place to be able to exercise those rights. They have to facilitate the perk management, and that can really be a problem. And they could hire a gift card company for one piece of it. They could have somebody else kind of manage the others, issuing them all as utility tokens, and we have a utility token that actually operates like a gift card. So, you know, that really takes away a lot of pain points.
So, but in this instance, I'm not just simply participating in a token offering. I am actually buying equity of the company, correct?
Either equity or debt, correct.
Okay.
It's a security.
It
Yes.
is a security.
It is a
at the end
security,
of the day.
yes.
Okay. Yonathan, why don't you tell us about your company?
Yeah, so I think Satoshi gave us the opportunity to move from this world based on trust to this world based on transparency. And when you look at the consumer side of what we do, our target is the sustainability market, and specifically the conscious consumer. If you look at the numbers, you have a $2.5 trillion market for sustainable products, like products that are sustainable, that have a message, that you can actually are part of the story, and that's how consumers are now looking for what they buy. 9 out of 10 millennials will switch brands if the brand has a cost. So when we approached the problem and we were trying to translate the benefits from the B2B side to the consumer, we saw this huge trend. We said, okay, maybe it's just something small that some consumers will want to use, but we saw that they really want to be attached to what they buy. They want to be part of the community. They want to be able to give back to the products that they buy and be part of that story. And what we saw is that there's a portion of that market that wants to buy sustainably, and they don't do it because they don't trust the brands. They don't trust what they're saying. There's a huge lack of verification. So we started to explore like all these options, all these technologies to actually be able to address the gap, and we saw that blockchain was a really good fit. So in practical terms, right now we have partnered with one of the largest retailers in Latin America, and consumers will get into the supermarket, they will be able to scan. This is the story you've probably seen a million times in the news. Our approach is quite different. I think the other solutions are focusing on the B2B side, on providing more transparency to reduce costs. For us, is basically addressing that gap, that $1 trillion market that is sitting right there for brands to take. They're so big, and this is a new market for them, as a new consumer that they don't know how to communicate with them. So with this technology, we think we can help those brands connect with these consumers. And so you scan it, you get the traceability of your product, you can actually give back to the farmers that are in Latin America. So a tool that gives them more, not trust, but truth around what they buy. And we think it's pretty difficult to do it without a decentralized network that consumes information from different systems, from different parties, with no benefits and with no advantages to anyone in the system. So right now we are connecting, for this first solution, we are connecting 7 different participants with 5 different verification parties. I think it's a pretty good fit for blockchain.
So basically I can scan my item in the grocery store and find out where every single ingredient's sourced and where it's gone through the process. So you can take that a little bit step further, right, and be able to figure out, I don't know, if those bags of spinach got recalled, you can figure out exactly where something was introduced and exactly where they went.
Yeah, and that's part of it. The purpose is to reduce costs at the moment that there's an issue that arises, and being able to target and say, hey, that was the party that introduced the issue. But we think that the opportunities around like traceability, around like reducing costs are just 1/10 of what we have around the opportunity to actually target these new conscious consumers, which is basically providing with the tools to create a story, to create the transparency that they need in order to be able to buy what they want to buy. So it's all about moving the needle on what the brands are telling them to actually move to, hey, I don't want to trust anyone. I don't want to, if you're telling me that you're organic or something comes from this place, I want to be able to verify. So they will click, if someone says, hey, these are 100% vaccinated with no hormones, they will click and they will say, they will have the certificate from the seller that will say, yes, we provided those vaccines or we provided that supplement for the animal.
So have you been able to prove out yet of a brand making more money because of this?
Yeah, so we didn't release yet the solution. It's coming out November 25th.
Okay.
But we've seen other projects in Europe that actually proved that with these verification tools, they can actually drive more adoption and target this new target of consumers.
Right, because I imagine, as I put my investor hat on, the only thing I really care about at the end of the day is that you made me more money.
And that's one of the key metrics that we have for these companies.
Okay.
I mean, we're not tracking how many downloads they have. I mean, we're tracking real metrics. This drove more consumers to buy your product, yes or no.
Okay. Nicolas, why don't you tell us about your company?
Okay. So Emurgo is the venture arm of the Cardano blockchain. For the who you don't know, Cardano is one of the top 10 public blockchains out there. Basically, we are developing an entire new protocol from scratch that looks to be more advanced than any other protocol out there. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about Emurgo rather than Cardano. So to give you some context about Emurgo, we have 4 different business models. So we do investments, and for investments, we can split it in 2 parts. Seed-related investments that we do through our acceleration program called D-Lab, based in New York, and we are in partnership with SOSV, which is a pretty big venture fund in the US. They're like close to reach their investment number 1,000, and they were the only institutional investor in BitMEX, for the ones that know a little bit about the space. So in the lab, we are doing seed investment. And so far, we have invested in 10 companies this year. We don't believe in tokens for this stage, so we are strongly believers that if you're using blockchain, it doesn't change the rule of investments. So you actually need to have a well-defined problem and a solution that actually is better than other solutions out there. And hopefully, this solution is going to be 5x or 10x better than other solutions in the market. Okay, so the second part of investments, we also do Series A for like a little more advanced companies. Our second business model, we have an academy program in India where we are like looking to teach around 1,000 to 2,000 students about blockchain. Our third business model, we also do consultancy, and for this we are working with big companies and even with governments at a country level, and we are helping them implementing some really, really specific use cases of blockchain in their countries. And so far, at the Cardano level, we are working with Georgia, Mongolia, Ethiopia, and also we are going to do a press release about another government that we're working with. And this is pretty cool. And our last business model, we also develop products, and we have some products in the Cardano blockchain, but also we are developing some solutions in what is like the permission-based blockchain. But happy to
So you mentioned 10 investments with that first fund. Could you actually highlight for us what you think is, and I imagine they're all on the blockchain, all
Yes,
the 10 companies.
all of them.
Could you highlight what you think is like the most interesting use case of blockchain from that group of investments?
Okay, so in general, the use cases that I see for blockchain are quite limited, but they're like really, really strong. The first one is quite obvious right now, is DeFi. The second one that we are strongly believers is supply chain. The third one is finance. And and the other ones, I still know a few more, but maybe I could go a little more in details about these three so it makes more sense.
Yeah, go in a little bit more detail.
Okay, so I'm originally from Chile, and that's how you can notice that I have an accent. And some of the issues that Chile is actually a sort of a developed country. We are part of the OECD, which is this like club for like rich countries, you may say. And for example, if you have some savings and you want to invest them, for example, in the SAP 500, it's quite difficult. You need to go through your bank, who goes through a broker, that sometimes could go to another broker. So for example, I wanted to help my dad buy an ETF for gold, which here is super easy, but in Chile it's not. So what blockchain could bring is actually not only what you have here, that blockchain can bank the unbanked, but something that I like to say is that blockchain can actually fully bank the semi-bank. And people that actually have access to expenditure, but the process for them is so difficult and they end up paying like 20 or 40% extra fees that they don't need to. And for this case, quite obvious that blockchain is a solution because without blockchain, you pay this, and with blockchain, you pay this.
Okay.
And for example, for our startups, I can mention 2 startups quite fast. And so one of them is called HelixWorks. What HelixWorks does, they're able to create synthetic DNA and embed information in the DNA. They're already able to do this. And the first question that you may have, how do this relate to blockchain? So what happens with supply chain is that once you read the identity of like a physical object, that it could be like a box with a QR code, and then you track it in the blockchain, everything goes perfectly, smoothly. But the problem with supply chain and blockchain is that they have a weak link between a physical identity and a digital identity. Basically, you can change the content of a box, and then you're going to be tracking the wrong thing in the blockchain. You are going to be tracking a counterfeit product in the blockchain, and you're going to track it perfectly, but it's not what you're looking for. So what HelixWorks does with synthetic DNA is able to put the same information that may be in the QR code, but in the same object. So it's practically impossible to counterfeit. And the price scale, because we are venture capitalists, it's getting there, so we are like really excited about HelixWorks. And some of the use cases is, for example, in pharmaceutical, which sometimes there is a lot of counterfeit in some specific countries where you end up taking sugar pills instead of like the medicine that you actually require to live, and it's like actually pretty dangerous. So that's one of our startups. Our second startup that I will mention is called Sempo. What Sempo does, Sempo works with NGOs to help them support people in need, like refugees, people in countries that could be like Lebanon or Iraq. And the best way to help people in need is actually give them money, because you can't foresee what needs they have. So for example, you can be giving them food, but maybe the food is going to get to a mother, which her biggest priority is actually her baby. Or you can be giving food to an old person that actually needs medicine. So the best way to help is through money, but sending money to people that they don't have bank accounts is tricky and also expensive and slow. So what Sempo does, Sempo is using a stable coin. In most of the cases, they have been using DAI, and they're able to work with the NGOs. And something interesting is that in most of these people in need, they actually have cell phones. Obviously, they don't have the latest iPhone, but they have like an okay Android or like something that at least can run an app. So what they were able to do is that they created a crypto wallet that receives stable coins. The complexity is completely gone. It's super simple. And these people are able to go to local vendors, and with this crypto wallet, they're able to buy products, and they decide whatever they want. So these people are able to use the crypto wallet with the vendors receive this stable coin, and then Sempo transacts with the vendors and exchange the stable coin for the fiat that they use. And this is pretty good, because instead of trying to send money to like 1,000 people, you end up only sending money to a few local vendors. And they have moved more than $80,000 so far, and they have been working Iraq, Lebanon, Vanuatu, which is an island close to Australia, and also, I think, Kenya. And this another startup that we have invested that's quite interesting, and the latest one that I also can mention is called Diwala, which they are working with digital identities in Uganda. So the problem that there is in Uganda is when you apply to a job, there is a lot of people that lie about actually their credentials. So what happens from the company perspective, they need to validate with the universities that actually the people got the degrees that they were supposed to. So this process is so slow that they actually need to send people to the universities. They need to pay like 20 or to 30 bucks per applicant. And there is an entire economy in Uganda because of this. So by creating digital identities that are going to be working with some of the universities there, you can actually validate and create this ecosystem where you wouldn't be required to go through this whole process. And actually, this is interesting because it's not blockchain for the sake of blockchain. There is a problem that you can measure in the market, and you can see that in other countries it doesn't happen because we actually have more trust. So this is the type of things that we like because you can measure the problem. It's quite simple, it's quite obvious, and then the solution makes sense.
So Ben, there's quite a few other platforms out there that you can invest in companies. Why do you have the competitive advantages? What did blockchain do to change that for you?
I think that so blockchain is giving us advantages now. It's going to give us more advantages in the future as we add a trading platform. We're in application status now for broker-dealer. We plan to become an ATS as well and utilize. We have our trading platform already built, so it's ready to go. There's a possibility that we could actually affect trading for the utility tokens that represent the perks first as kind of a proof of concept, get people working with the trading platform before securities get involved. But I think how do you put
a price on a utility token though, right? So the perk from my company could have been like, I don't know, free water bottles.
Right.
But maybe Yonathan's company was like free product, right? Which had more value. Like how do you?
Sure. Or, well, I mean, I think that, like anything, certain things will not price well and won't sell well. But there are other things, like there are companies that give gift cards or give, a perpetual discount or give some type of VIP status that comes from an identity perk. Those things would be more valuable for trading. But I think to get back to what makes us different because of blockchain, it isn't so much the blockchain immediately that makes us different. What it is because we knew that blockchain was going to be involved, we knew that we were going to be part of this life cycle from the beginning all the way through the end of that security. And because of that, we developed kind of a suite of offerings in the middle, and we presented something that really is not in the market right now. So right now, average Joes they can invest in startups on, say, Start Engine or WeFunder or one of those. They go through that process, they invest, they're told that they're closed, a check gets delivered to the issuer. At that point, their experience is different on every single investment they make as to what happens from that point on. So one thing that we know about retail consumers is that they like predictable experiences. So what we've created is an environment where all of the communications, all of those things that became kind of black holes for those investors now are predictable because they're happening on our site because they have to, because we're part of that equation through the life of it. So the investor communications are done through a private portal that we provide for the investor to communicate directly to those investors, and they can load up their marketing materials so they can help those go viral. Those investors can participate in the success of that company. But also, even more importantly, just even something as simple as payments, whether that's a dividend payment for an equity or whether that's just regular payments that happen with a debt instrument or a revenue share instrument, that happens free on our platform, and it's facilitated and record kept through the blockchain as well, and that's a significant advantage because essentially for me, I invest in something, and now I can actually see the behavior and the current value and maybe even trade that investment all on the same platform that I invested on. And right now that doesn't exist.
I mean, I guess I can see trading investments in companies that are a little bit later stage and, you know, maybe have predictable growth and predictable revenue streams. I kind of cringe at trading equity positions in global businesses, in startups, in tech companies. I mean, I just think that's all scary.
It is a little scary, and it is a little shaky. And obviously, I mean, there are examples in Europe of companies that have started to do this. There are a few that are here in the U.S. that are starting to do this, and it's going to be a process in terms of seeing what gives the best liquidity, but ultimately it's having the option of the liquidity, no matter how long that option may take. If I'm an investor on Main Street and I'm investing $2,000 of my savings in this local business that I really believe in, but a life event happens, I need to know that I at least have the possibility to connect with another user who may also love that small business, that local business, and may be able to get at least some liquidity there.
Do you truly see this as a way to grow wealth, or do you sort of see this as like a fun pastime?
Oh, I think it's definitely a ability to grow wealth. I mean, I think that you can, for a retail investor, they're seeing opportunities to grow wealth in this type of an investment that they wouldn't normally have access to. So some of these companies have the potential to be, quite large, but that's really not the point. I mean, one of the reasons why we actually are focused on including local businesses and small businesses that have existed for 10, 20 years and have a history is because it provides a diversified portfolio for our investors. So those businesses, while they may only issue a revenue share note or a debt instrument rather than offering equity in the small business, that's an instrument that's likely to be paid back because they have a track record, they have a history there, as opposed to just offering investments of safe, simple agreements for future equity, which is crazy. People are investing in that in crowdfunding portals, and really it's just investing in something that could be something in the future, but if it isn't, it's nothing. And that's like, how do you give that to a Main Street investor? That's a very, very difficult proposition. It's easy for you and I to take that proposition, but not for most unaccredited investors.
Well, and I don't think they should. But
agreed.
That's a different.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And we are seeing on our platform, especially for the smaller businesses, they're focusing on debt and revenue share, which is what they should. I think revenue share represents an opportunity for great synergy between investors and issuers. For the business, if they have a down quarter, or if they're a cyclical business, or if they have a period where they have to pivot, well, those quarters, their revenue goes down, their payments go down as well. So it offers flexibility for them, but even more so, if they've got 2,000 investors that are from their community that care about their business, those 2,000 consumers that are now investors in that business, they have the opportunity to not only affect the success of that business, but make their investment better. Because if they can get their revenue to skyrocket, they're going to get paid back quicker, which is going to increase their IRR.
So we've got about 18 minutes left. Do I have any audience questions? Please.
It's okay. Okay. So Cardano is split in different stages. So I'm going to go super quick about them. So the first one where we are is Byron. So we have our own blockchain out there. We are not a token. The next one is called Chelly, which is proof of stake with decentralization. And we are looking to be at least 50 times more decentralized than Bitcoin or Ethereum. So we are currently moving to Chelly. And actually today, we did our first step toward Chile, and we are launching our testnet on Thursday. And next, after Chile, is what is going to come is Goge, which is the smart contract platform that's coming on the first quarter or the second quarter of next year. And we even developed our own programming language called Plutus, which is like Haskell style. After that, we are going to have what is Basho, which is related to scalability. And after that, we are going to have what is Voltaire, because Voltaire is going to touch everything that's related to governance, and we are working with some stuff that's related to treasury and also liquid democracy.
Any other questions in the audience? Oh, sir.
So I heard the comment about the food. Now, this is way goes beyond that, but my problem is, see, going back to the certificate that says this is organic, that's not good enough anymore, right? It's got to go back to this was picked from this field before that cow came in and used the bathroom in the field, and that caused the contamination. And you're like, okay, that's food, but this goes for all these other things, right? It's got to go all the way back. So one, and I know you're shaking your head, and so you've considered it, but you see, that's the upfront cost that I got to convince the farmer. Now, I'm not dealing with the farmer, but I got to convince the guy that pulls the metal out of the ground. He's got to scan it. So talk about how you've taken it all the way back to the guy that washed his hands after he went to the bathroom. Okay, there you go.
Thank you. That's a great question. I mean, like everything in the space, we don't believe in this world where, blockchain is going to disrupt the entire world like tomorrow. That's not going to happen. That's why we started with traceability, actually to provide value without disrupting the entire business process of these companies. If someone is starting to do something in blockchain, I wouldn't recommend anyone to start and try to disrupt the business tomorrow, because that's not going to happen. You're not going to get the buy-in from those participants, and you're going to fail. So I think that the important thing is to start very small and then iterate often on that. That's the first point. The second point is the strategy on how you approach those participants. To give you an example, so our strategy is partner with large retailers and large brands that can actually convince their suppliers to come on board, right? If you go the other way, you need to convince 500,000 farmers in Colombia to then see if you can make something out of coffee, right? So you go to the big one first, and then what happened is we went to Latin America, we talked with the big one. The big one had 7 participants. Let's take the example of the last one, the farmer. We went to the meeting, and at the end of the meeting, when we summarized what were the steps that the farmer needed to take, my question was, is this going to change how you do things? Is this too much for you on a day-to-day basis? He looked to me in the eyes and said, hey, you know what? If you ask me to run for 10 miles, go back and forth for 2 hours so I can sell that to this large retailer, I'll do it. Just tell me what do I need to do, and I'll do it. So
what are you asking them to do?
So basically, pretty much nothing. I mean, pretty much it's for them confirming, so either getting onto a platform and filling like 10 details on like in 5 minutes, and then the next participant will need to confirm details through a click, either on the phone, sending a text message, or confirming yes or no on an email. So I'm not saying, yeah.
But why wouldn't you provide a little bit more value to the farmer, and in that case, provide with them a sensor they can put in the ground that's going to do some predicting around how much more watering they need to do, et cetera, which also tracks everything you need to track.
Yeah, so we partner with one of the largest RFID companies in the world, and we are doing that. But going back to my first step, we cannot implement an entire like RFID system to actually track if the cow left the field and they're not eating grass anymore, because they're not going to do it. So we decided to start very small. Hey, this is a step that you're going to take. And immediately show you the value. Hey, now you're selling more. Like people are buying this product like at a better price. So now they will be engaged and they will want to contribute more. And that's how you bring them more. Okay, now you have tags in these cows. Now I'll be able to identify it if they're actually grass-fed. So I think it's about like starting very, very, very small, bring them on board, showing them what's the value without talking about blockchain. I think blockchain should be transparent for every company right now. Like we are way past the phase where we are selling blockchain. Like we don't need to sell blockchain. It's like selling HTTP in the 90s. Like just tell me what value are you bringing? Nothing else. Don't talk to me about anything. I went to Japan a few weeks ago to the largest Ethereum community event, DevCon, and everyone was so excited. They were building. Oh, we're building. And you see all these teams like building for what? They didn't even know how they were gonna connect with each other. They didn't even know if there was a customer on the other side willing to use what they were, but they were all so excited that we're building. And sorry, I'm going after VCs, but VCs are still fitting into these protocol-based solutions to bring something that nobody knows if someone is
We're not
interested in
investing
using.
in the blockchain. I mean,
Yeah,
unless you're specifically investing in the blockchain. Or
yeah.
not.
But we've seen that. I mean, obviously, it's the one sector that has the biggest upside, because if you hit one of those, like if everyone starts using your protocol, then it's a big win. But they're still not focused on the application side, on who are really building value for people. That's all that matters. So we have all those solutions, but I think coming to you, the system is not going to be fully transparent, I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be much better than the current system that we have, and we're going to be iterating on that.
One last question, please.
But you know, I've worked for large banks, and I think that, you know, it's very archaic what they do. But you know, I bought a Bitcoin on Coinbase, and it was pretty powerful how much they know on you. So I guess there's a lot of background from Deloitte and, you know, investing and so forth. If you guys know who Coinbase uses, who you guys think is going to be the, you know, potentially de facto of Know Your Client, and if you guys have seen anything from the add-on to that really goes into the next level of detection of fraud, you know, to, you know, LexisNexis and collusion, and how people are tied together in sort of a, you know, in a web of like LLCs tied together and so forth.
Do it.
Yeah. So one company that we're very enthusiastic about, we use them, is Netkey, and they're a KYC company that works very, very well with blockchain companies. They've got an application that uses, that takes over your phone. It will examine both sides of an identification, examine it for any sign of tampering. It will then pull all the information off of that ID, and then it will take a selfie, and it will do an interpolated 3D image of that. It will compare that to the picture on the ID, and it's really quite amazing that technology can actually take a picture that's maybe 25 years old, because they actually work with a number of, I mean, completely international, and in some countries, the IDs just don't get retaken. So in many cases, it's a 25-year-old picture, but it measures the distance between the centers of the eyes and the ears and other things. It's really quite impressive. And for our mobile application, we've taken that down as an SDK, and it's incorporated into our application. They run AML checks as well. So it's a very promising technology.
So we've got about 8 minutes left. I'm just going to go down the line. Each of you take 2 minutes to talk about what you see the future of blockchain is, or your industry, where this is all going. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
So I think the industry went through 3 phases, and I thought, for the ones that actually know software engineering, I thought it was a cascade model. And basically, we started with education. Like, we been educating clients and employees on blockchain back in 2012, 2014, for a couple of years. Then moving into, okay, now let's move you into prototyping. Let's show you the value, you can socialize it with executives, and now we're going to production. And we got stuck in there. Like, what's going on? Like, why we cannot go into production? Like, what's happening? And maybe it's regulation. Someone will say it's scalability. I don't think it's scalability. I mean, we launch a rocket to the moon, I'm sure we can scale on the blockchain. So I think now the industry went into this sprint model where we are iterating again. We're going to education again, educating other clients, other people on the uses and the benefits, and now going through prototypes and production solutions again. And it's going to take time. It's going to take time, but it's all about making it real. It's, and as I said, it's not about like selling a dream, selling blockchains. Just get out there, pick one small problem, show the value, and iterate on that. And I think the industry is, I mean, probably in the next couple of years, will basically separate the bad from the good, and the ones that will survive, we're actually going to be the ones not building, but actually providing value. And I think the industry has tremendous potentials for the ones that actually know how to execute and deliver value quickly to the stakeholders.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great point. I think going forward, blockchain as a technology is moving from a prototyping technology into real-world technology. It has matured, or it has evolved at least to the point where real businesses are starting to look at it as a very serious addition and enhancement to their tech stack for the right reasons. So one thing I'm glad about is that blockchain, a lot of people, when it started, it was very much tied to crypto. And I'm very glad that, that separation is becoming more clear by the day. And blockchain is a technology, it's a ledger, which gives you a lot of power, if you implement for the right use case and for the right technology in the right way. So now, as companies like us, who have an existing business, who have to serve 800,000 users every month, and who are trying to partner with people who have millions of users every month and every day, we need technology which can scale as well. So I think blockchain, next step is not only making this protocol, getting us all excited about it, but also working on the governance and scalability and reliability of this technology. I think that is where the future is, that we all need to work towards, is to create a more reliable, predictable environment in this technology for it to succeed, really.
I agree with what Yonathan said earlier. I couldn't agree more, actually. There are too many companies that I feel are selling with blockchain first and with what it enables second. And I think that's a real danger. I think that, blockchain went through a period where it did sell itself. And I think that's partly responsible for a lot of regulatory nightmares that we're in right now. But I think the time has come where the future of blockchain is dependent upon the companies that use it and their success, and it may or may not have anything to do with any particular aspect of blockchain. I think it's an enabling technology. Our site, when it comes live next week, we've got a splash page up now, but you're not going to find blockchain on it because we don't think that it's important to alert investors or issuers to what the enabling technology that's providing advantages to them is. I think that it's a powerful technology, and certainly on the financial services side, there is a future that is very much tied to, unfortunately, how regulation comes out. Right now, companies like ours, companies like T0, companies like Templum are forced to keep duplicate systems. One side is a completely normal broker-dealer system, and then on the other side, it's blockchain, and that's really the only way that the SEC or FINRA is going to allow us to do that. And that eventually is going to change, but when it changes, really is up to a number of players, whether that's legislative or regulatory. I think that obviously the future in financial services is very bright for blockchain, because eventually you will have transactions that instantaneously happen on the blockchain. We're not there yet, and we're not going to be there until the SEC has almost limitless ability to govern that. And how they can do that on a decentralized chain or whether it has to be a permission chain, I think those are all part of the discussion.
I'm going to start like from the bad part, and I'm going to go for the good part. So I think blockchain currently in everything that's like B2B is like oversold, and actually it's like if you are trying to sell a project that, and you mentioned blockchain, it's actually like raise an eyebrow. And so currently that's an issue because a lot of people promise blockchain is like the solution for so many things, and that's not true. And so this is good in some ways because it's going to eliminate everything that's like the fad, and it could be like pretty similar to what happened with the internet in the late 90s. Like it got overhyped, but obviously now we know that it actually had something. And personally, I'm really bullish in some specific use cases for blockchain, but it's mostly about interconnectivity in this like layer that's like another like internet but related to finance. And currently blockchain looks like more of like the internet in the 80s in the ways that it's a lot of like different LAN networks. And this is basically all these protocols that are out there like Ethereum, Cardano, and so many others, and they're not interconnected. So they help a bit, but it's going to be so much better when a lot of them die. I don't think there's going to be one clear winner, but a few. And these few probably they're going to be interconnected. And this is when the entire ecosystem is going to have more value. And there's not going to be like public blockchain with cryptocurrencies and enterprise version, because the enterprise version right now doesn't give that much value. And some people will say, oh, the information is immutable, it can never be lost, until they shut down the servers. So what you want is that even the enterprise part could communicate with the public part. And this is going to get pretty interesting because you're going to be able to move like assets, you're going to be able to communicate between financial identities, and maybe the KYC process is going to be embedded in the transaction. So as long as you follow some rules, you're going to be able to, through actually a public blockchain, connect between different banks and like different financial assets. So we are looking forward to like 5, maybe 6 more years when it's going to be like obvious that blockchain is like a huge improvement for a lot of people, especially in developing countries where we are seeing like the most that we can help with. But so far, continue building.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us today. Let's give them a round of applause.